we haven't spoken about this topic in a while, but there's a new bombshell report out today about the private contractor army Blackwater in Iraq and just how corrupt and scary they were. So for those of you who don't know, Blackwater is a private security company founded by a zealot named Eric Prince. And basically, their job was to protect embassy and business personnel in Iraq during the war. So they're essentially a private army in Iraq during wartime, right alongside our troops. And gee, I mean, what could go wrong there? Having a private Christian army in the middle of Muslim lands? Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a fantastic idea. Now, to be clear, I'm not just saying that as like what they happen to be Christian in Blackwater. No, the guy who founded Blackwater and his whole family, they were deeply involved with the religious fundamentalist movement in the country. And there were reports, I mean, if you read Jeremy Scahill's book, Blackwater, he really details this, how, it was really an overtly Christian organization in many ways. And I know the contradiction is so overwhelming. The idea that, yeah, we are a Christian army. Oh, really? A Christian army? You want to do Christian porn next? Hit that Christian crack pipe again? I mean, it's a contradiction in terms. I thought Jesus cared about loving people and turning the other cheek. Well, no. Apparently, according to Blackwater, Jesus loved the idea of gunning people down with a machine gun. So, what ended up happening, because the Blackwater people are lunatics, is they acted like they were literally above the law. And they kind of were, because they weren't soldiers, so they didn't have to answer to the military code, and they weren't going to submit to Iraqi courts, and of course they thought, well, we'd never be tried back in America for what we did here, because what's going to happen? Who's going to testify against us? Other Blackwater people? Fucking Muhammad walking the street in the market in Iraq? So they really acted like they were 100% above the law. And, I mean, the result of that, they were drunk all the time, they violated rules about weaponry, they used prostitutes, they violated protocol and went into dangerous zones unannounced, and they were some of the biggest offenders in killing civilians in Iraq. In fact, there's one infamous incident known as the Nisour Square Massacre, where 17 Iraqi civilians, including children, were killed by Blackwater. Again, Jeremy Scahill in his book goes into a great amount of detail over this, really breaking down the story. And basically, it got to a point where Blackwater, they just had completely dehumanized all people that had dark skin in Iraq. And they would just go house and just kill whoever the fuck they wanted to kill. And that actually led to the Iraqi government essentially kicking out American troops. It was one of the biggest factors. People don't talk about that a lot. But one of the biggest factors was this fucking private mercenary army, answerable to no one, was gunning down civilians in the middle of an Iraqi market. Well, today we learn that a guy named Gene C. Richter, who was the lead investigator into Blackwater, just a few weeks before that massacre, he was told by a guy named Daniel Carroll, who is a Blackwater project manager. This guy said to him, according to Raw Story, he could, quote, kill me at that very moment, and no one could or would do anything about it as we were in Iraq. Now, the story was actually verified by multiple people involved in the situation. There are so many outlets reporting on this today. So what we have is a private mercenary army leader telling a U.S. government investigator, a top official, I'll kill you if you say anything wrong about my organization. Damn, man. You want to talk about the train going off the tracks and speeding 100 miles an hour into a fucking ditch. Look at this situation in Iraq that we had gotten ourselves into. Invading and occupying a sovereign country that did not attack us. Gunning down civilians with a private mercenary army answerable to no one. So what did the State Department do after this incident where a Blackwater leader threatened to kill a U.S. government official? They shipped out the Investigator and sided with Blackwater. That should be stunning to anybody and everybody, man. Cover it up, move along. Now, if you're not pissed off yet, how big of a contract did Blackwater end up getting? $1 billion. In fact, about $240 million of that $1 billion came after the known incident where a Blackwater leader threatened the life of a top U.S. government official and investigator. I wonder why they hate us. I can't figure it out. Could it be because we invaded a country that did not attack us? We killed well over 100,000 civilians in the region, displaced millions of people, and we had a wild, unaccountable mercenary army that had overtly Christian beliefs threatening everybody in the region, and including our own investigators looking into them. Could that be why they hate us? Because we've essentially become this imperialistic power acting in, the most unbelievable ways, man. This blows my mind, and I've been covering this stuff for a long time. Every single one of these Blackwater people that committed a crime should be brought to justice. Now, the only good news about this is there are actually a few that are on trial in the U.S. I don't know how they're going to be found. I don't know any details about the story because none of the articles went into any further details. But some of them are on trial. And Blackwater has changed its name 2 or 3 times since because of all the bad press they received as a result of how they were acting. First they were Blackwater, then they were Academy, then they were Z. Now I think they're even something else, and they merged with another company. But there you have it, man. Maybe, just maybe, we should stick to the idea that any kind of private army is a bad idea. Because you know what those essentially are? You know what we call them when other people do that? We call them warlord factions. Well, look, I hate to state the obvious, but it's the same when we do it and when they do it, and the results are the same. You kill civilians, they act in a very unaccountable way, and they go crazy. Let's just stick to this whole only the army thing, and let's also stick to only invading countries that attack us.